They beat the Dutch 4-0. They beat us 1-0 in Lansdowne Road. I wasn't that impressed with them when we played them in Dublin. Now, to be fair, I think we managed to keep Killian Mbappe very, very quiet that day. You wouldn't have hardly known he was on the pitch, and I feel that we were lucky not to get a point, but unfortunately, lucky doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it's all in the score sheet, and they won 1-0. It was a magnificent save by the Nathan Collins header to stop us getting the draw. I thought we played quite well against them. I think obviously they haven't moved the ball. The game against Greece, they only beat Greece by 1-0, and it was a retaken penalty, and they weren't very convincing at a home game. I think Greece had a little bit more about them than we have at the moment, but I wouldn't say it's a give. I find that we rise to the occasion when we play the big sides. If we look at the game against Portugal, I know we're going back a bit. The game against Portugal, the games against Scotland, the way to Scotland, the way to Serbia. We've always been very competitive in these big games. Everyone has assumed we're going to get hammered, and we haven't. What's actually happened is we've actually taken the lead in a couple of games. We're unfortunately not been good enough to hold on to the lead and not been good enough to close out the game with getting a point. So I think everyone is sort of thinking 2-0 France is probably if you're a betting man, that's probably the score you'll go for. But I just have a funny feeling we'll give them really be much tighter than people think. Probably a 1-0 France. I think, Paul, like you said yourself, a draw here would be absolutely brilliant. Because I think if we have any hope, and I'm not saying, to be honest with you, I don't think we're going to be in the running at all for second or first. Definitely not first and all. But if we have any ambition to get into the top two, we need to get a point against France, and we need to beat Holland. We need to beat Holland on Sunday. So we need 4 points. 4 points would be absolutely amazing. I think if you're looking at to win in the 2 games, you get 6 points. I think people think you'll be red fairies. So I think realistically,
that would be an understatement. No, it's I couldn't see that. I mean, the way I look at it, I'm sorry, no, I can just my honest opinion. I think they're looking to staring down the battle of maybe only 1 point or maybe even 2 defeats, because again, you can talk about spirit, and you have to have spirit. You have to have team bond, and you have to have attitude, work with. Of course you do. But I'm just looking at the quality, and ultimately, we got the France team fourth and Holland on Sunday. I just don't think we have the quality, and that ultimately comes down to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said that Holland aren't great, but to be fair, Holland won't think we're great either. I think Holland would see that Greece are probably better than us, given their performance. And to be fair, on the balance of the table, the Greece beat us 2-1 before the game against Gibraltar, and could and should have probably beaten us by a lot more. I think you said. I think if you're a betting man, if you think hand on heart, what you think is going to happen, I think it's 2 defeats. I think we'll even to get it's the worst possible time to get these 2 teams. Like on Thursday, we're going to be absolutely like we're going to be out on our feet. I think after the game, particularly if we have particularly if we think what's going to happen. France are going to have a load of ball, and eventually they will break us down and to win 1 or 2-0, or hopefully not more. We'll be totally dispirited. We'll be going into a defeat, and then on Sunday, after getting a chasing against France, we have to go and play Holland. Now Holland aren't. This isn't the best Holland team.
Yeah, they're not definitely not. I know they use the old phrase transition to a lot of sports, but the current Dutch team, I seem to be going through this. The older players, and they're bringing young players, and they don't seem to have stepped up, but they still have a technical ability. But just I thought before we leave the France game, so I'm going to have to ask you what your opinion, what call it.
I think it's sad to say, but I think it's going to be France 2-0 at least. I think yes, in the past I've said that we've given most teams away from home a really good battle, and we've risen to the occasion. But I just feel with France now, they've beaten everybody in the group, and I think we won't get hammered, but we it won't be like a 4-0 like the Dutch had earlier on in the group. But I think it'd be France at least 2-0. 2-0 France is probably the goal right at the moment.
Yeah, I'd be afraid if France got a goal early on, it could be 3 or 4-0. But if Ireland can hold out maybe to the 60th minute, France are going to win, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but maybe 1-0, 2-0. But if France get an early goal, they could relax and they could suddenly start playing, and they could beat us 3 or 4. I hope I'm completely wrong and I'm misreading the situation. I don't know anything about the French squad, have their full squad available, but that's just my honest looking at it, and I can't know. So if we move on then, even if we only get beaten 1-0, as you say, we're going to be running around the pitch chasing the ball. We're going to be physically tired then, gone to play and come back to Lansdowne Road. We're probably going to be mentally deflated. There'll be probably a negativity. So will the game against Holland then be real hard to lift them up? Will the home crowd and the home venue be enough to lift the traditional Irish spirit?
Well, you would hope so, Paul. I think I remember the time there about this time last week they were talking about the 22 years since we played Holland in the qualifier and we beat them 1-0. McAteer's goal, I don't know if he remembers, but we're still such a long way from that team that beat them that time. And look, I had great memories, against Holland. Holland actually, we used to always play the Dutch during Jack Charlton's time. But there's one team we couldn't avoid. We had him in '88, and we had him in Italy '90. We had him in 1994 in the US, and I think we had to play Jack Charlton's last game in the playoff for Euro '96. So we just couldn't avoid him, and then for a long time, then we didn't play him, and then we played him in Mick McCarthy's campaign for the qualifying for the World Cup. We drew 2-2 in Holland, and we beat him at Lansdowne Road. So this is the first time qualifier between the two sides since 22 years ago. So, look, they're the Dutch fans, they're great Dutch fans. They bring huge colour and huge excitement, and I think it's actually great to be playing them again. But it all depends on what sort of scenario we have after Thursday. If we get an awful chase and then we're totally beating out the gate like 2, 3 or 4-0, the Irish fans will have to really rise to the occasion and really get behind the team, and often again another beating. I don't see it being a massive beating. I see maybe a 1-0 win to the Dutch, particularly if we get a chase in France, like what happened with us against France in the opening game. I think Van Dijk at the back. There always seems to be rows in the Dutch camps.
That's as long as I can remember anyway.
Go
back to, just to clarify that, the great Johan Cruyff in '74, they almost won the World Cup final, but 4 years later they got to the final, but Cruyff didn't play because he had some falling out with the management or something happened anyway, or whatever, he wasn't available, and they still got to the final. So as long as I can remember, the Dutch seem to be a bit temperamental. We use that word.
Well, that's just it. Like there always seems to be something wrong, in the camp, but the Koeman is under pressure, like, because that France loss really hurt his reputation. And look, the OE beat Gibraltar then 3-0 at home, so they haven't been in great form, Paul, to be quite honest with you. I think the reason why they're top seeds is because they did really well in the Nations League, and that's the reason why France are second seeds, which I think, which I won't go into now, but I think it's absolute joke that France just have to be second seeds in this group. But we're getting back to the game on Sunday. Look, it's going to be a great occasion, big night in Dublin. These are two fantastic games for the fans to watch and to support the team and get behind them. But realistically, though, we're on a bit of a downer if we're going to the game on Sunday with a beating. Just say that just 1 or 2-0. Then we're going to have to try and lift ourselves up, and it all depends on how Guinea's management does over those 3 or 4 days. Injuries could come into it as well, Paul. Yeah. We're hoping that we have a fit squad, but we're bound to get 1 or 2 in France because physically it's going to be a very tough game on a Thursday.
Sorry, no, just cutting across you. Who are Holland playing on the Thursday? Are they playing Greece or who is it?
Joe, I just gone pure blank. I just gone pure blank.
It doesn't matter. That's a different thing. But as you said, I suppose traditionally in Holland, if you look at the 3 big clubs, were PSV, Ajax, and Feyenoord, and they'd be always in the knockout stages of both the European Cup and the Champions League and the Europa League. But in recent years, they're in the group stage, but they never really progress. So I think they're kind of selling their players younger now. They're more selling clubs now to the big clubs. So, but they still produce these good young players, technically good players. So, but maybe we should just maybe at home a bit of the old-fashioned, get stuck into them and kick it through them early on and kick it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that does work too, sir. Maybe when you're back, there's an old saying, if your back is to the wall, you've only one place to go. So Ireland could literally come out fighting and get stuck in and kick a few and get a few yellow cards and get the crowd. Yeah. Do you think that could be important? I know Stephen Kenny likes his technical stuff, but sometimes you have to get a bit of blood and guts, as an old saying.
But I remember the game in 2001. They had an unbelievable side. They had Van Nistelrooy, Hasselbank. They had Kaku. Yep, Stam, they had Zenden, they had who?
No,
Clivert, yeah,
okay.
Clivert was there, yeah. Clivert was the sitter in that game.
Yeah.
And they had Venisar and goals. They had Melchior. They had an unbelievable team. They were bringing Louis Van Gaal was bringing on strikers as well. I think he ended up with 5 strikers, Overmars and Hasselbank, and I mean the team was totally overloaded up front. But getting back to what you're saying, yeah, that's what we did. I mean, Roy Keane in the first 20 seconds clattered into Overmars, and no, obviously back then. You probably wouldn't get a yellow card for it, but you would definitely get a yellow card for it. No, we probably even get a red card for it. But I think we have to get stuck into him, and we have to press up high. And I think sometimes with Van Dijk, he's a bit casual. Sometimes I find I love to see Ferguson get stuck into him as well now and stuff like that. I find sometimes Van Dijk can be a bit casual, be a bit he doesn't like he now obviously likes the physical stuff, but I find it get stuck into him and upset him, and then because he can be a bit ratty too with these players around him. But I think that's what we have to do, Paul. I think we have to get stuck into him, make it as hard as you can. The crowd get right behind the team, and upset them and see how they handle it. Let them know you're there.
That's an old phrase in all sports. Let them know you're there.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. We have to do it. Like we have to bring the game down to our level. They're technically in both games. They're technically superior to us in on all aspects. So what we have to do is reduce the game down to our level and see how they handle it. And now, obviously, they'll be probably technical enough to play around us, but you have to ask the question, Paul. You have to get stuck into them, upset them, do a bit like there's a famous word, do a bit of housery, time waste, do everything you can. I find sometimes with Irish teams, like trying to call the little details. You have to do what you have. You have to do. You have to willing to do whatever it takes to win a match. And I find sometimes we're a bit naive. And I think it's been done to us numerous times. Players going down, killing time, wasting time, getting players booked. Now I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but by God, like the Italians make no apologies for it. I mean, in the Euros, I think I remember one time Sterling got caught by the neck and brought down on the halfway line, and I think Keane easily took a yellow card. That's no, it's not right. It's the dark arts, as Damien Duff calls it. But you have to be willing to do everything you can to win a match. And I find sometimes that we are not willing to do it. And I think we're going to have to do it in these 2 games. Upset them, get stuck into them. Obviously play a bit as well, like take our chances. But we have to upset these 2 teams as much as we can, get stuck into them, and then take our chances. Free kicks, corner kicks, throw in set pieces. All that has to be on point now over the next couple of days.
Yeah, no, just a question. People are talking with the manager, but maybe we should look back at the players, and maybe each player should look into their own half or look in the mirror and say, right, I'm going to go out and take my best and have a real cut. You know what I mean, Wilson? Maybe take responsibility, because end of the day, the old saying, once you cross the white line, yes, the manager has an impact, of course he has, but once you cross the white line, maybe these players have to take a little bit of responsibility in both those matches.
Well, I think, to be fair to Stephen Kenny, he has absolutely backed these players to the hills. Like, over the years, Martin O'Neill, Trapattoni, less so Mick McCarthy, but particularly Trapattoni and O'Neill, we say we didn't have the players, we have to play a certain style, and we're not as good as other teams. You ever hear Stephen Kenny say that? He's always about the positive, what they can do, not what they can't do. And I think he's backed these players numerous times. And to be fair to him, he's given a lot of these players their debuts, and he's backed them to the hills. Like, I know, like Zuna for Ireland has done quite well. It's just I have a worry about him at club level and his form coming into this camp. But Stephen Kenny will definitely back him up. And any player that's in that squad, he'll have high praise from. Like even with James McLean, he said, look, he's been a servant for Ireland for a number of years, and it's not ideal, but Kenny's going to back him. So I find that the players want to play for Ireland, they want to do well for Ireland. I heard even Nathan Collins said in an interview yesterday that we believe we can get 4 points out of these 2 games. And there is belief in the squad that they can do it. But it's been realistic too that it's probably 2 defeats or at least 1 point is only coming our way. But if the players don't believe they can do it, then